Okay, everybody, welcome back to Casual Card Games, and today I'm going to be doing my pirate deck profile. It's Admiral Beckett Brass is the commander. Now, as I'm saying this, we're getting Caverns of Ixalan, I think at the end of the year, the beginning of next year, and Ixalan's my favorite plane. You can hate me all you want, but I love the tribal aspects. I love dinosaurs, love pirates, vampires, and merfolk. I think they're all cool. So, what I'm hoping for out of all those tribes, pirates I think is the one that needs an upgrade with their commander because right now Beckett Brass is the only one that really works, and I would love to see a new pirate commander. But anyway, as it stands, we have Beckett Brass. So what Beckett Brass says is she's a 3/3 for 4 mana human pirate. Other pirates you control get +1/+1. At the beginning of your end step, gain control of target non-land permanent controlled by a player who is dealt combat damage by 3 or more pirates this turn. So we have to have at least 3 pirates out there, and then we have to be able to swing at least and get one player with at least 3 pirates. So is it all that hard? No, not necessarily. Not with the support that we have in this deck, and I'll show you guys here in a second. My lands, I do 13 islands, 13 swamps, 13 mountains. You can do whatever you want. You can run non-basics, your choice. That's just my personal preference. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Okay, so let's get on to the deck profile. So we play them out of all the types. We play the most is creatures. So I'm going to get into the creatures, starting with the lowest CMC, go to the highest. So we got Daring Buccaneer. He's a 1-drop. You have to pay an additional 2 to cast him unless you reveal a pirate from your hand. Pretty easy. He's a 2/2 for 1 mana, which is why I like him. Okay, let's... Siren Storm Tamer. So it's a 1/1 flying pirate wizard. So the fact that it is a wizard is semi-important, but really we're just playing it in here because it's a 1/1 flying pirate. It does have the effect of you could pay a blue, sack it, counter target spell or ability that targets you or a creature you control. I mean, that's cool, but we're mainly just wanting it because it's a flying pirate for 1. This next card is, if they make any new pirate support that I like, I will swap this card out immediately because it's just a filler pretty much. It's Desperate Castaways. It's a 2-drop. 1 black, 1 generic. It's a 2/3. It can't attack unless you control an artifact. I like its stat line. It's not a very good card, but as I was saying, I'm just looking for another pirate that I like. You will notice there are some pirates in here that I don't play. I hate the treasure mechanic. I think it's just become so busted that if anything says treasure on it, I'm just refusing to play it. When pirates first came out, treasures seemed like, oh, if they're just really going to only be in pirates, that's fine. But when they added it to every color can make treasures. Now every creature, it feels like when in doubt, they're just like, oh, make treasures. That's fine. So I can't stand treasures. That's why I don't play it. I also don't really care for the monarch mechanic. So those two right there, you'll see that there's some pirates that most people would be playing that I don't. So I'm playing some cooler old school pirates. But I do want to say this. This deck actually works pretty well. So I hope you can see some spicy text. Dire Fleet Captain. It's a black and a red for a 2/2. Whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 till end of turn for each other attacking pirate. So it can boost itself. Dire Fleet Poisoner. This is just kind of like, a trap that we can have in our hand. It's a 2/2 pirate for 2 mana. Has Flash and Death Touch. When it enters the battlefield, target attacking pirate you control gets +1/+1 against Death Touch until the end of turn. Now, obviously, it's designed so that when you're swinging out with your pirates and your opponent's like, well, I'll block that pirate, you can bring this thing out. And then they're like, oh, well, now I don't want to block the pirate that you're swinging at me with because, it has Death Touch. But it's also nice if your opponent's got a creature that is problematic and they try to swing at you, you can just surprise them with Dire Fleet Poisoner and it has Death Touch. So, Fathom Fleet Captain, it's a 2/1 for 2 mana. It has Menace. Whenever it attacks, if you control another non-token pirate, pay 2 mana and make a 2/2 black pirate creature token with Menace. I like him. Kite Sail Corsair has flying as long as it's attacking, and it's a 2/1 for 2 mana, like that. Kite Sail Freebooter, it's a 1/2 for 2 mana, has flying. Whenever it enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, exile that card until this thing leaves the battlefield. Once again, however many pirates that we can have that are low drops, so they're easy to cast, and then if they have flying or a way to have flying or some sort of evasion, that's nice. Wanted Scoundrels, it's a 4/3 for 2 mana. Whenever it dies, target opponent creates 2 colorless treasure tokens. Obviously, what treasure tokens do, but I know it, when it dies, my opponents make treasures, a few of them, but for me, I just can't pass up the fact that it's a 4/3 for 2 mana. Excuse me, I'm a little stuffed up right now. Alright, we got Warkite Marauder. Once again, 2 mana, a 2/1 that has flying. Whenever it attacks, target creature defending player controls loses all abilities, and has base power and toughness 0/1 till end of turn. This is one of my favorites. I wish they made more stuff like that. All right, on to the 3-drops. Forerunner of the Coalition, I'm sorry. When it enters the battlefield, you get to grab a pirate from your deck and put it on top of your library, and then whenever another pirate enters the battlefield in control, each opponent loses 1 life. So in Rivals of Ixalan, all 4 of the main tribes got a Forerunner card. I think the Dinosaur one is easily the best. The Merfolk one's not bad. This one might be the weakest, or maybe it's the Vampire. The Vampire one is probably the weakest, but this one could have been so much better. But regardless, it's a it's a pirate that lets me go grab a pirate that I want, put it on top. Headstrong Brute. It's a 3-mana 3/3, can't block, but it has Menace as long as you control another pirate. Menace is great since we're trying to get damage in. Rishadan Airship. This is a reprint of an older pirate card. Has flying. It's a 3/1. It can block only creatures with flying, which is fine. Stormfleet Sprinter, one of the best, I think. It's a 2/2 for 3 mana, has haste, and can't be blocked. The fact that it can't be blocked goes perfect with our theme. Captivating Crew. It's a 4/3 pirate for 4 mana. It has the ability where you can pay a red and 3 mana, gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn, untap that creature, gains haste until end of turn, and this ability you can only activate it anytime you could cast a sorcery. I might want to move this down, that way you guys can see a little bit closer. All right. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, Crafty Cut Purse. When it enters it has flash. It's a 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, each token that would be created under opponent's control this turn is created under your control. Now, I know that this is kind of like a rarity, like, oh, you're just going to hold that into your hand if it does. Look, there's not a whole lot of great pirates, in my opinion, so this thing does a cool thing. So, is it always going to be optimal for me to hold up 4 mana? No, probably not. But if I know I'm going up against a token strategy, then yeah, I might hold this up and then basically just pass and let them try to do their thing and then cheat them out of all their tokens. Deadeye Quartermaster. I don't love this card, but seeing as how I was kind of out of options with this deck, I had tried to make this deck before, and I didn't really love the old build, so yeah, I basically was forced to kind of, see what I could do. So when this thing enters the battlefield, you can go grab an equipment or vehicle. I don't run any vehicles. You can put it into your hand and shuffle. So I run 2 targets for Deadeye Quartermaster. If there was some better tribal equipment or better pirate equipment, I would totally swap this, or I would totally play some different stuff. This is, like I said, it's also a card that I wouldn't be mad if, like I said, hopefully we get better pirate support and I could just take this card out, because I don't love it. Direfleet Neckbreaker, for 4 mana, it's a 3/2. Attacking pirates you control get +2/+0. That includes itself. That's a good one. And you'll notice, like, some of these are orc pirates, because basically, as far as I'm concerned, the pirates of Ixalan and Rivals of Ixalan, they kind of got separated into, like, a few different tribes. So there's, like, human pirates, there's orc pirates, and then I think there's goblin pirates. And let me know if I'm missing any, but I think that's mainly it. And then I think there's a few minotaur pirates. Hostage Taker. This is the card. This is the reason why it's taken so long for me to make this profile, because I'd been waiting for this card to show up in the mail, and it hadn't. Finally, it did. One of the best pirates, honestly. It's a card that sees play in other decks, but it's a 2/3 pirate for 4 mana. When it enters the battlefield, exile target artifact or creature until this thing leaves the battlefield. You may cast that card for as long as it remains exiled, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast that spell. It's a good way to get rid of a problem, and then you leave yourself open to, like, well, maybe if I have nothing else to do with my mana, I can just cast it. Merchant Raiders. This is one of the best cards in the deck. This is probably the best card in the 99, honestly, and it's the best pirate that I think they've made since the initial Ixalan stuff came out. I mean, this is probably my favorite. It's amazing. So it's out of Commander Legends. With Commander Legends, we got a few pirate stuff. This is probably my favorite, and there's one other one that I really like. But so it's for 4 mana. It's a 2/4 human pirate. Whenever Merchant Raiders or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, tap up to 1 target creature. That creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step for as long as you control Merchant Raiders. I love how that works. That the more pirates I get out there, the more, enemies I can tie up and basically, like, restrain them where they can't do anything, and allows my pirates to get in more damage. I love it. Rowdy Crew. This is one that I, like, glossed over, where, like, originally I think I must have missed this card because I would have been playing it a long time ago. And as I said, I built this deck. Initially I had, like, a Nekuzar deck, which at some point I do want to rebuild that. But I had Nekuzar, and I was like, well, what other, like, Grixis strategies are there? And then I looked at the pirates, and I was like, you know what? I want to make pirates. I love Ixalan. And I tried to make a build, and there are a few cards that I missed that I don't know what I was doing. I didn't see them. But Rowdy Crew is one of them. For 4 mana, it's a 3/3 with Trample. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards at random. And then if 2 cards that share a card type are discarded this way, put 2+1/+1 counters on rally crew. So like, it gives you a semi-benefit for like making you discard your cards. Like, hey, if you hit 2 of the same type, it becomes a 5/5 with trample, which is good. But honestly, it just lets you draw 3 cards and discard 2. And like, I can't be all that mad at that. Okay, next we got, this is the other great card of Commander Legends. Well, I guess there's one more. No, 2 more. Sorry, Commander Legends had a few. So, Coercive Recruiter. It's an Orc Pirate. It's for 5 mana. It's a 4/3. Whenever it or another pirate enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature until end of turn. It gains haste and becomes a pirate in addition to its other types. So, you know, sometimes I get bored and I'll just like playtest my own decks against each other. And I know that sounds like really nerdy, but I only really meet up with my buddies once a week to play. So sometimes I just get bored and I'm like, I want to see how my decks are doing if I make new changes. And this deck was putting in work. It was going against all my other decks, basically. I think I did like a 10 different deck match against each other. And this deck, I don't think it won that one, but it finished like 2nd or 3rd. At one point, it stole, it might have won one actually, but it stole like the dinosaur decks, like big hitters like Zakama and Galta and all this other stuff. And I was like, wow, this really gets crazy. So that's a great card. Direfleet Ravager, great. Also, notice that it's a wizard. I'll show that in a second why that's important. So for 5 mana, it's a 4/4 Menace Death Touch. That's great in and of itself if it did nothing else. But when it enters the battlefield, each player loses a 1/3 of his or her life rounded up. So as far as I know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, we don't have a whole lot of ways to like gain more life. But the bottom line is, if we can drain everybody else, it just makes it that much easier for us to kill them. So that's fine. Port Razor, great card out of Commander Legends. For 5 mana, it's a 4/4. Whenever it deals combat damage, we're talking about Port Razor. Whenever Port Razor deals combat damage to a player, untap each creature you control. After this combat phase, there's an additional combat, and then Port Razor can't attack a player it has already attacked this turn. So hypothetically, if you had multiple opponents that were open and you could do damage with, that's a lot of combat that you're doing. That's a lot of triggers. That would be great. Zara, Renegade Recruiter, also from Commander Legends. She's a 4/3 pirate for 5 mana with flying. That's cool that she has flying. Whenever she attacks, look at defending player's hand. You may put a creature card from their hand onto the battlefield under your control, tap them attacking that player or planeswalker they control. Return that creature to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. This is great support. I would have wanted an actual like 3-color pirate commander that did something like this. I still say, Wizards, if you ever see this, which you're not going to, but I still think the pirate commander that we need is something where like you get to like drop your pirates in whenever your commander attacks, and then they get to go back to your hand like kind of the safety of the ship. That's what I think would make the most sense. Engrass Marauders is my last creature. So it's a 7 mana human pirate. It's a 4/4. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. Just helps us kill people faster. And I'm saying that as a joke in the game. Wipe out our opponents faster. All right. On to the enchantments. Okay, so we got Kindred. Oh, hold on. I didn't put these in order. Give me 1 second. My bad, guys. Oh, well. Anyway, let me know in the comment section below if you guys like pirates. I mean, I think it's a cool type. It's just a shame that we've gone so long without getting, I would say, good support. But that's just my opinion. Okay, so first up, Daring Piracy. So this is probably the newest support I think the Pirates got. And it's out of Jumpstart. I think it's Jumpstart 2022. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red pirate creature token with Menace and Haste. Exile at the beginning of the next end step. So imagine this as basically you are insured a pirate that's going to be able to get through and do damage, because most of the time you can find at least one opponent that only has 1 blocker or less, so you can get damage in with that. So I like this card for that reason. All right, next we got Fervor, giving all our creatures haste. Gotta have that in a deck that's built around attacking. Goblin War Drums. Creatures you control have menace. Good card in this deck. Pain Magnification. This is a Rakdos staple for me. If I play black and red in a deck, I'm going to play Pain Magnification. Whenever an opponent's dealt 3 or more damage by a single source, that player discards a card. Now, because of Beckett Brass being able to give a +1/+1 bonus to our other pirates, there's been times where I swing out with 3 pirates, and basically, if I'm going at different opponents, I can make them all discard a card because they're all doing at least 3 damage. Lastly, we got Propaganda. Does Propaganda have any synergies with this deck? Not really, but it's just like, you know, a good blue card in my opinion. I know some people aren't a fan of this. They don't think it does enough. Dude, I can't tell you the amount of times that my opponents are like, well, I would attack them, but I don't have the mana for that. And they don't do in their turn. And you just get left alone, And a lot of times we've swung out, we don't have any blockers, but cards like Propaganda can kind of, you know, like buy you some time. So that's why I like it. All right, let's see. We got 4-drop enchantments. Give me 1 second. Once again, guys, normally I have all this stuff prepped. I think I got sidetracked where I thought I was done, and I wasn't. Okay, so first one is Call to the Kindred. I love this enchantment. One of my favorites. It's an aura. So for 4 mana, you enchant a creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may look at the top 5 cards of your library. If you do, put a creature that shares a creature type with Enchanted Creature from among it onto the battlefield, and then push the rest of the cards in the bottom of your library in a random order, or any order, I should say. So any tribal deck that has blue in its colors, I think you should run a Call to the Kindred, if the creatures are worth getting out. That's my opinion. But yeah, for this, normally we'd like to enchant this onto a low CMC pirate, or even our commander. And yeah, just start cheating out free pirates every turn. I like that. Okay, next one is Coastal Piracy. Come on, not only is it thematic in the sense of it's called Coastal Piracy, but it actually works with the deck. For 4 mana, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So we're wanting to do nothing but get damage in with a bunch of different pirates. So on a typical turn, yeah, you might be able to draw 3 cards off Coastal Piracy, so not too difficult. Next, we got Dissipation Field. Once again, let me move that down a little bit. So once again, you know, we're going to leave ourselves defenseless a lot where we swing out. So we need something to kind of defend us. So Dissipation Field's perfect. Whenever a permanent deals damage to you, return it to its owner's hand. That's really good. Leaves them more wide open if they really want to do damage to us. Fire's Invention. This isn't a red staple for me, but I notice I put this in a lot of decks. So for 4 mana, you can cast spells only during your turn, and you can cast no more than 2 spells each turn. I think there's 1 or 2 cards in here that had flash, like Crafty Cutpurse and that Direfleet Poisoner. Aside from those, I can't really think of a whole lot of cards that I'm like trying to flash in or play on my opponent's turn. So no problem at all that, like, hey, if I can't play stuff on my opponent's turns, no problem. The benefit is I can cast spells with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands I control without paying their mana cost. Basically, I would view this, for anyone that's not familiar with this card, I would view it as red ramp. In the sense of, if I play this on turn 4, and I have Fire's Invention, okay, I still have 4 lands, so I get to cast another spell for my hand, or my commander even, for 4 mana or less. And then the next turn, I can play 2 5 mana or less cards, even though I only have 5 lands. And then if you have creatures that have mana abilities, then that's perfect, because you can still tap your lands to do those mana abilities while still casting things off Fire's Invention. So I think it's a great card. Doesn't work for every red deck, but it's pretty good. Levitation, one of my favorite blue enchantments. Creatures you control have flying. You know, I could run a Wonder in here and do the Buried Alive combo, or I try to put it in my graveyard along with Anger and a few other things. I just figure this is probably easier. Creatures I control have flying. I have a few pirates that have flying, but being able to give all my pirates flying so they can just fly over and deal damage and I can steal stuff with Beckett Brass is nice. And then lastly, thankfully, they reprinted this card last year in Dominaria Remastered, or I guess technically this year. I'm so happy about this. Whenever a creature deals damage to you, destroy it. One of the best black enchantments, in my opinion, or at least one of my favorites. So obviously this works kind of like Dissipation Field. Instead of their cards being bounced back, if they really want to hit us while we're tapped out, then they'll lose their creatures. So that's great for us. Okay, last 2 enchantments. We got Kindred Discovery. Obviously, when it enters the battlefield, we choose a creature type. We choose pirates. Whenever a pirate we control either enters the battlefield or attacks, we get to draw a card. Card draw is great. And then my last enchantment is it's probably my favorite enchantment, Sunbird's Invocation. That's a red staple for me. If you guys don't know what Sunbird's Invocation is, just look at any of my other deck profiles. Okay, next we got our sorceries. So give me 1 second. I got to make sure that these are good to go. Okay, so first one we got March of the Drowned. So normally a common is not going to get a whole lot of play in any of my commander decks. I mean, occasionally you'll see some creatures, but very rarely that a sorcery would be a common. But March of the Drowned is just good, at least for pirates. So you can choose one. You can either return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, or return 2 target pirates from your graveyard to your hand. Well, we only run pirates, so for 1 mana, we get to grab 2 pirates and put them back in our hand. I think that's pretty good. Okay, next we got Night's Whisper. That's basically a black staple for me. You pay 2 mana, you draw 2 cards, you lose 2 life. That's good value right there. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this next one, this is another one that, like, I'm open to swapping out if I found another card that I like better. And I just mean, like, once the Caverns of Ixalan set comes out, I'm sure this card will get taken out. Mass Appeal. I love this card. I just normally when you play human tribal, blue isn't in the colors, so it's like this is the one deck that I was like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. I could play this. It's 3 mana, draw a card for each human you control. You would ideally like to at least draw 3 cards off it, so you break even for the mana that you spent. We have plenty of humans. Obviously, there's a few orcs. I don't think there's any goblins in this deck. There might be 1 or 2, but it's mainly humans. So, I mean, if we got 3 pirates, chances are they're going to be humans, so we should be able to draw off that. And then got Mitotic Manipulation. This is becoming a blue staple for me, partially because I run nothing but basics in my deck, so it really helps. So, for 3 mana, you get to look at the top 7 cards of your library, put one of those cards onto the battlefield if it has the same name as a permanent. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So normally what happens is I can play this and then look at the top 7 cards of my library, and if I hit one of my lands, either me or if somebody else at the table has that land on the battlefield, I can just put it onto play untapped. So yes, it's 3 mana to ramp 1, but I get to ramp and it becomes in untapped. So I like that, and like I said, in these colors, you want any chance you can to ramp, so that's why I like it. Okay, so 4-drop sorceries, we got 4 of them. Okay, so first is Crippling Fear. Choose a creature type. Creatures that aren't the chosen type get -3/-3 until end of turn. So obviously, we're going to choose pirates. Relentless Assault. Untap all creatures that attack this turn. After this main phase, there's additional combat, followed by additional main phase. That's good. The more combats we get, the better. Ruination. Destroy all non-basic lands. Doesn't affect us because I'm running nothing but basics. Red staple for me. Sleep. Tap all creatures target player controls. Those creatures don't untap during their player's next untap step. Allows us to get in damage and then possibly get in damage for another turn. So I really like that. Okay, next we got Patriarch's Bidding. Each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from their graveyard to the battlefield. Our goal here is that, like, look, if we've survived a board wipe or 2 board wipes or whatever, and we got like 4 pirates or more in our graveyard, you play Patriarch's Bidding and you're like, cool, you're not running tribal, you're not running tribal, so like I only got to deal with 1 or 2 creatures from you, but for me, I get more value off of it. Okay, and then we got Cruel Ultimatum, which for me, this would be a Grixis staple. I love Cruel Ultimatum. I'll run it in any Grixis deck. Target opponent sacks a creature, discards 3 cards, loses 5 life. You return a creature from your graveyard to your hand, draw 3 cards, gain 5 life. I love it. You could argue with me, it's not that great of a card. I don't really care. And lastly, we got Kindred Dominance. Choose a creature type, destroy all creatures that aren't of the chosen type. Obviously, we choose pirates. Okay, last section of the deck, we got artifacts. Give me 1 second. Okay, so we're going to start off with 2 drops. So let's do the medallions. We got Jet Medallion, which I love. I mean, like I said, I'm a medallion guy. That's my mana rock. So I got Jet Medallion, Ruby Medallion, Sapphire Medallion. You can call me an idiot all you want, whatever. I love these cards, and I just wish Wizards would reprint them. The last 2-drop I got for artifacts is Pyre of Heroes. Now, I said before that, like, you know, Merchant Raiders and Coercive Recruiter, those are probably the best cards in the deck. As far as non-pirates, like best pirate support, Pyre of Heroes is up there. I've always wanted to throw this in a deck. I tried it in my Colorless Eldrazi deck, and it wasn't giving me the value that I wanted. But because of how easily we can play pirates in this deck, how many we play that are low drops, this is great support. So for 2 mana, you play it. But for if you pay 2 and tap it, you sack a creature, search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrifice creature and has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's CMC. Put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. And obviously, you know, we don't really have a way to untap it. You know, but if you did, obviously you could get more value out of it. But the great thing is, like, Merchant Raiders is a great card. Coercive Recruiters is a great card. Merchant Raiders is 4 mana. Coercive Recruiters 5. It's just so much easier that, like, I can play a 2-drop or a 3-drop and then kind of Pyre of Heroes, use my extra mana, and work my way up into those really strong creatures. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's do... Okay, so I got Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn I don't think is necessary in every tribal deck because sometimes that little 1 reduction isn't as good, but in a pirate deck, sometimes all they have is 1 to reduce, so I like it for that reason. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast when it enters. You choose pirates. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature of that chosen type, you reveal it and put it into your hand. So it also allows you to possibly get an extra card. Okay, next we got a Robe of the Archmagi or Archmagi. I don't know how to say that. So It's 3 mana, blue artifact equipment. So whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw that many cards. So this is a great equipment. It's one of the best, honestly. But it costs 4 to equip. But if you equip it to a shaman, warlock, or wizard, it only costs 1. The amount of times that I've been able to use Pyre of Heroes and sack and get Direfleet Ravager out, he has his effect where he reduces everyone's life total by a third. And then basically, because he's a wizard, I only have to pay 1 to equip this card. That's really cool. So give me a second. I'll get into the other equipment that I have. Because remember I had you see Deadeye Quartermaster, I believe is the card. Direfleet Quartermaster, I don't remember. That's one of the equipment that we can search for. Other artifact, we got Urza's Incubator. In a tribal deck, Urza's Incubator is great. Choose a creature type. Creature spells the chosen type cost 2 less to cast. Okay, now we're getting to the last couple artifacts. Got Door of Destinies. Once again, this doesn't work for every tribal deck because if you don't cast a lot of your tribe, if you got bigger CMC cards, this doesn't get a lot of work. But in Pirates, it's good. So it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We choose Pirates. When you cast spell the chosen type, put a charge counter on it, and then creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. So I like that even if our Pirates go away and people are like clearing them out or destroying them, whatever, if Door of Destinies is still there, it'll still keep stacking the charge counters and buffing our creatures more. Okay, the other equipment that I run, I just like this one, General's Kabuto. It costs 4 mana to play. Cost 2 to equip. Equipped creature can't be the target of spells or abilities. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to equipped creature. So, unlike, another equipment deck that I tried to make, which I didn't feature on this channel, which was the Knight deck. I didn't ever feature that one. And that one I might rebuild, but this wouldn't work in that deck because it's basically giving you, like, Shroud once you equip this onto it, where, like, you can't equip anything else. So in an equipment deck, this card doesn't work because then you're screwed and you can't equip more equipment onto your guy. But with this one, if I want to put this on Beckett Brass or if I want to protect Merchant Raiders, I can equip this on there and then like, cool, now it's protected. It doesn't take combat damage and it can't be the target of spells or abilities. I'm like, that's a great equipment. I think more people should be playing it in something. Last card in the deck, Cryptic Gateway. So I was debating whether to put this card in here, but I think it's actually working pretty well. So you pay 5 mana to play it, tap 2 untapped creatures you control. You may put a creature card from your hand that shares a creature type with each creature tapped this way onto the battlefield. So there's some cool things you can do with this. Like, we have a lot of cheaper pirates, so it's kind of cool that you can go, okay, well, these pirates really aren't going to do a whole lot for me, and if you don't have any combat damage incentives, like if you don't have a coastal piracy or anything like that, you can just use those smaller guys and just tap them and then cheat something bigger out and then possibly use your mana for another support card. So I like it. I don't think this works with every tribal deck, but for this one, I like it a lot. All right, anyway, that's my pirate commander deck. I'll do an update whenever Caverns of Ixalan comes out. I hope you guys like this. This is a casual deck, and I know, once again, there's certain tribal cards, there's certain pirate cards that I could be running, the Captain Lannery Storms or whatever, and you guys can call me an idiot for not playing them. I just hate treasures as a mechanic. I think it's terrible, and I think they should have never made it, or at least, if they did, just keep it to where pirates make it, but nope, they had to screw that up. Anyway, that's it for now. Next deck that I'll be making, not entirely sure yet. It might be a little while before I do another upload, but we'll see. Anyway, that's it for now. Have a good one, guys.